So I'm watching a Smarter Everyday video about uh molecular electrostatic motor inside of cells, and it was very cool and interesting. And then he brought up that creationists, they're like, look, complex thing means designed. And that kind of logic bothers me because you see, the way I make sense of the natural world and the living things in it is that exaptation is the process of discovery, and adaptation is the process of refinement. Let's take Archaeopteryx, for example, because everybody knows and loves Archaeopteryx, okay? Now, the correct people about history, not the creationists, but the people who actually know about biological evolution, all right, which is different than abiogenesis, okay? Because abiogenesis is mostly chemistry, whereas evolution is mostly uh, the behavioral psychology of animals and like slight permutations of like Mandel's genetics. It's still chemistry underneath, but it's chemistry that behaves in a more understandable way, whereas abiogenesis is more complicated than rocket science. So yes, we're just gonna focus on Archaeopteryx, okay? Yep. Creationists say some dumb shit. One of the dumb things they often say is there's no such thing as a half wing. And first of all, you can cut a wing in half, so they're wrong. But what they mean is there's no such thing as a half wing that you can fly with. And they're kind of right, but here's the thing though. People use feathers for bedding, okay? Because feathers are soft, right? Well, dinosaurs thought feathers were soft too. And dinosaurs also made nests with babies, and you need to keep things soft for babies, okay? Also, birds think feathers are pretty. And just like humans and other animals, the larger it is, the more impressive it is, okay? So, you're right, you can't fly with a half wing, but you know what you can do with a half wing? You can compensate, and you can pretend it's a full wing. And you can also rip your feathers out and use them as bedding for your dinosaur children. So, you're right, you can't fly with a half wing, but if we think about it in terms of exaptation, what they had was feathers for warmth. And then some of those feathers looked prettier than other feathers, so they adapted them to look even prettier. And then some of those feathers were longer than other feathers, so they adapted them to be even longer. Because according to animal psychology, the more vibrant, the more uh, the more presence you can command, the healthier you seem, okay? It's like if you're a moose and you have huge antlers, okay? People are going to assume you're well fed and you have good genes. Same thing with birds, all right? So, I mean, precursors to birds, precursors to Archaeopteryx, even the dinosaurs, okay? They they saw dinosaurs with bright colors and they were like, "Ooh, that dinosaur can get it." And then they made babies with that dinosaur, and then the children had bright colors. It's not complicated. They also saw dinosaurs with long feathers, and they were like, "Ooh, they have some sumptuous hair. Yeah, they know how to take care of themselves. That dinosaur can get it." And then they had babies with those dinosaurs, okay? It's not complicated. And then we had dinosaurs with really long, brightly colored feathers. And then everyone had brightly colored feathers, so they started dancing, okay? And then they started incorporating jumps into their dance. And then they started getting things that might resemble wings but didn't necessarily work as wings. And they started using them to glide, right? So they started incorporating gliding into their dances. And then, wouldn't you know it, suddenly they could fly. And suddenly, flying wasn't just a sex thing, it was also a survival thing. You could fly away from monsters, and you could fly to impress girls. So then, the dinosaurs, alright, had become birds. It's not complicated. And actually, birds evolved twice. And then one entire branch of bird like animals that are, for all intents and purposes, if we brought one back today with a time machine, you would tell me it was a bird. They're called reverse birds, though, because their hip points the wrong way, because they evolved completely separately. Birds actually evolved twice, but only one lineage survived, and they evolved twice from dinosaurs. I'm glad we settled that. So just a quick recap. Exaptation is the process of discovery arising from mutation, and adaptation is the process of refinement arising from survival of the fittest and mutation. Okay, so exaptation actually involves an element of free will. You see, I am a redhead, okay, and we stand out. But what if the world, instead of having gray concrete and skyscrapers, had like a nice yellowish orange hardwood floor aesthetic, okay? So suddenly the entire world, instead of being covered in gray concrete for this hypothetical, is covered in hardwood flooring. Well, my bright orange hair isn't neon orange, it's kind of a ruddy orange, okay? So when I lay on certain kinds of hardwood floor, I can actually camouflage my hair. I look bald. So hypothetically, let's just say there's a robot uprising, okay? And in this world of hardwood flooring, the hypothetical world, gingers who don't shave, so their entire bodies are covered in red hair, can just lay on the ground and the robots can't detect them because they're camouflaged with the hardwood flooring. All right? Suddenly, being a redhead wouldn't be a weird mutation that looks kind of cool but isn't that big of a deal. Suddenly, being a redhead is the difference between life and death. Suddenly, an exaptation, red hair, it doesn't do very much for you, although some people think it's hot, but that's like personal taste. Suddenly, an exaptation becomes an adaptation. And that is where the element of free will and evolution comes into play. Because if I didn't have the idea to lay on the floor and cover myself in my own like redhead hair to hide from a robot, and again, remember this is an alternate universe where the world is made of hardwood flooring for some reason. Suddenly, without my creativity, I'm gonna die like everybody else. So, actually, there is like an element of free will in evolution, or at the very least, evolution with a brain does involve choices that will affect future generations, like personal choices. And then that personal choice spirals out into a butterfly effect where your like great great grandchildren are adapting a certain way because of your like current exaptations. You get it? So there's adaptation, and that's when like a very strong person has children and those children become stronger because being strong is obviously a good thing. That's an adaptation. An exaptation is someone who's born with purple scales, and purple scales are weird and nobody knows what to do with purple scales, but it turns out purple scales can help you hide from sharks because they can only see the color green, and purple is complementary to green, and suddenly a whole new like evolutionary option appears. That is exaptation, okay? There's not only one and only the other, they work together. Exaptation is discovery and adaptation is refinement. And that is how I personally conceptualize the ongoing process of life on Earth. However, I am human, I make mistakes, and I'm not necessarily 100% right. And even if I am 100% right, I'm not necessarily in possession of full accuracy. So, yeah. Okay, bye everybody, rock on.